Good evening and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series for anash.org. Question: do you need to give Maaser from a gift card? Yes, you need to give Maaser of a gift card, the same way as if you get a gift from a person money through a check. Do you need to give Maaser? Of course, you got money. The same will go as a gift card. You get a gift card, it's money which you could purchase stuff. So therefore, you have to give Maaser of the amount which you got. Question: a boy that was born 13 years ago in Adar, which was not a leap year. So he gets bar mitzvah this year on Adar Sheni. But by mistake, he prepared the Torah for Parshas Tetzaveh, which is in Adar Rishon. What can he do? Can he read the Parsha or not? It's a very interesting question. The Mechaber in Shechenorach Simanin Ches Sifid paskens dermo that if a person was born in a regular year Adar, he gets bar mitzvah in a leap year in the second Adar, Adar Sheni. The truth is that it's a machloikes hachroinim. The Chivas Maramintz in Siman Tes Zion, he paskens like what the Ramu paskens, which the Ramu brings down the Maramins, that you become bar mitzvah on Adar Sheni. But there's a chiva of Marash Halayvi in Arachaim Siman Tes Zion, and he says that you get bar mitzvah on Adar Rishon. So the Maramins in Siman Tes Vov holds you get bar mitzvah Adar Sheni. The Marash Halayvi holds you get bar mitzvah Adar Rishon. The Ramu and most of other poskim pasken that you get bar mitzvah and Adar Sheni, like the Baramins, which the Ramu brings down. So over here, this boy prepared for 6 months by mistake a parsha, which is not basically his bar mitzvah parsha. Bar mitzvah parsha will be Adar Sheni. But tell for a boy that he prepared 6 months for nothing in vain, it's not that easy. So I was looking around to see if it's mentioned this shala in the poskim. And I found in a sefer which is called Reshimei Ahan, which is psukim, which a person asked Moshe Feinstein, and over there in Chelik Beis, Omet Chovches, Sima Reish Pei Beis Os Beis, he writes that he asked Moshe Feinstein exactly this question. And then Moshe answered him, since it is a machloikis hapoiskim when he gets bar mitzvah, and we have poiskim which say he gets bar mitzvah in the first Adar Rishon, although we paskin like the Ramu, which the Ramu says you get bar mitzvah Adar Sheni, but since you have poiskim which say that he gets bar mitzvah Adar Rishon, therefore, since Kriyas Torah is only a din midrabanan, you could be lenient that he should learn the parsha which he prepared in Adar Rishon, like the Marash Halayvi. When it comes to Inyon, which is a deraisa, we wouldn't be lenient that he should be able to, for instance, be yidaven for the Ummah, and be more to other people. Whatever is a Indian adaraisa, we won't be lenient. But when it's only it's a Rabbana, a mitzvah de Rabbanan, a chiyuv de Rabbanan, Kriyas Torah is only a chiyuv de Rabbanan, you could be lenient and let this boy learn Parshas Tetzaveh. Now we have to remember that since there is a machloekes hapoiskim, that some poskim like the Parasha Levi holds that you get bar mitzvah the first order. So the poskim say that even the people who do not put on tefillin before the bar mitzvah even a day, when it comes to such situation, he should start putting on tefillin in adoration, to be also yoitze the poskim which hold that he gets bar mitzvah an adoration. And since putting on tefillin is adaraisa, he starts in adoration. But all other things, he starts in order sheni. And the Moshe says, in such a mistake, and it's only kriya Torah which is adrabanan, you could be lenient that he should learn the parsha in adoration. Question: from what age do we need to be makbet not to hear a girl sing? We know that the Gemara says, Kol be'isha erva. To listen to women sing, it's asur because it's an erva. And the poskim say that Kol be'isha erva is only when it's a erva. So a girl which is not married yet, and she did not see nida, she didn't see a period, therefore she's not considered an erva, and you are permitted to listen to her sing. And that's about the age when she's 9 years old. This is how the Beis Shmuel paskens the Simcha of Aleph, Sifkut and Dalet, and also the Pri Megudam in Arachayim, Mishbet Zezuv, Siman Ayin Hai, Sifkut and Beis, paskens that zemer, singing from a penuya, a girl which is tohira, if it's not b'shas reciting the kriyashma or davening or saying a bracha, it's not a problem of kol be'isha erva. And this is also how the Mishnah Berurah paskens the Siman Ayin Hai Sifkut Nid Zayin, that zemer, isha, a penuya, if it's not when she davens or she says kriyashma, it's not an erva. So therefore the poskim say that if it's less than 9 years old, you could be lenient to hear a girl singing. Now the Mishnah Berurah adds on, but you shouldn't have kavana to have hana from her singing. That means if she sings Shabbos by the table, a song which she heard in school or whatever it should be, that's one thing, you could be lenient. But if she has a nice voice and you get it, you are enjoying her when she sings, that could bring already hiririm, and therefore Mishnah Berurah says you have to be machmer. When it comes to Eishazish, obvious she's an erva, you cannot listen to her. And the same will also go to your wife, and the time when she's not clean, you could not listen when she's singing. So again, if she's less than 9 years old, according to the poskim, most poskim would say you could be lenient and listen to her singing if you're not having in mind to enjoy her voice. Now, the Rebbe in Toras Menachem, Simchas Torah, Tafshin in Aleph, in Toras Menachem Chelik Aleph, page 173, over there the Rebbe talks about Simcha, and the Rebbe says like this: also a small child, a girl, where she was brought in shul between the men, in order that she should be a dugma chaya for the older men, how to be besimcha. So the Rebbe says, as long as it's not shaykh by her, the Indian of kol be'isha, in parentheses, which is less than 3 years old, and she is seniors, you could, so then you could bring her in shul, she should show the older man how to be besimcha. So from here, we see that the Rebbe holds that kol be'isha, if she's above 3 years old, you should be machmar. But if you see in the Rushe Devurim from that Isvadas, not which is printed in Toris Menachem, it is which other person wrote of that Fabrengen. Because you have to remember the Toris Menachem is not Mugit, it's not what the Rebbe wrote. The Rebbe spoke and people wrote it down. So one version is the Toris Menachem, and there's another version which is in Roshe Devorim from that Isvadas. And over there the Rebbe, they write that the Rebbe said something different. The Rebbe says, even if you have a small girl, which you brought her between the men, and it's not shayach, the Indian of kol be'isha, although she is already 3 years old, or if she's less than 3 years old, and bli ayin hara, she looks like older than 3, but still, it's not the problem, it's not a kol be'isha erve. And over there, the Rebbe is mamshech that since she's the tznuah, you bring her in shul, she should be a dugma chaya for the older people to see how to have to be b'simcha. So over here we see the Rebbe holds that even more older than 3 years old, it's not a problem of kol be'isha. So since we have two versions, and it's clear what the Rebbe holds, and most of the poskim say that till the 9 years old, you could listen to a girl singing, if you don't have in mind to have a noah from her singing. So therefore, you could be lenient till a girl is 9 years old, and she's still tohoira, sure she's not a erva. Because a penuya tohoira is not a erva. But to note, that's only a regular girl which you have no shayches. But if it's an erva on you, in any case, for instance, your sister-in-law, your wife's sister, or a non-Jewish girl, these girls are erva on you in any case. So you are not permitted to hear her sing from 3 years old. So therefore, if it's a sister-in-law, your wife's sister, you cannot listen to her singing once she's 3 years old, or a non-Jewish girl. But if it's not an erva on you, so therefore you could listen till she's 9 years old, and it's not a problem of kol be'isha erva. Question: may I salt a piece of avocado without adding vinegar or oil? The Alter Rebbe writes in Simas Shichuv Aleph Siv Dalet that any food which the salt changes the context, it makes it softer, or it hardens it, or it takes away the bitterness. For instance, tzanoin, radish, botzel, onion, shum, garlic, or igikas, pickles, you could not salt them a lot at a time. You could salt each individual and eat it right away. Because if you are going to salt a couple of pieces together and you're not going to eat it right away, it's going to sit in the salt, and since it changes the context of the food, it is nere kekoivish kevushim. It's as if it looks like you are marinating vegetables, and it's also to marinate vegetables because it's doimele ibet. We have a malacha which is called ibet, taking a piece of skin of an animal and putting it into salt and all kind of things that should become leather. That's ibet. So marinating vegetables is nere kekoivish kevusim, and it's doime like ibet, and therefore it's aser. So the Alter Rebbe writes, you cannot take any salt, any vegetable which is made to be marinated and salt it, because you are marinating vegetables. But that's only vegetables which is made to be marinated. Avocado is not a fruit which is made to be marinated. It's not the derech. And therefore, any fruit which is not the custom of marinating it, it's not a problem of salting it. And this is how the Pri Megudim paskens in Siman Shinchuf Aleph Mishbet Zezu of Sif Kuten Beis, and also the Mishnah Berurah and Sif Kuten Yid Gimel. Question. Also, is lemon juice considered in the same category as vinegar and oil for weakening the salt? Now the Alter Rebbe is mamshech that if you do salt vegetables which is made to be marinated, if you pour on top of it oil or vinegar, it's not a problem, because the vinegar or oil weakens the salt, and then the salt cannot do its job of marinating it, and therefore you can do it. So you cannot salt vegetables which you mentioned before, only if you pour on top right away vinegar or oil. So the question is over here, what's about lemon juice? And the answer is, the Alter Rebbe writes in Siv Gimel that all other mashke is also the same as vinegar and oil, and it also weakens the strongness, the sharpness of salt, and therefore if you put on top lemon juice on the salt, it is also okay, and it is as if you poured oil and vinegar, and it's not a problem to do on Shabbos. And this is also how the Mishnah Berurah paskens in Sif Kuten Ches. Question. May we put sugar on fruit that the way it's preserved is through sugar? Now the Ktsois HaShilchen has a shmiz regarding this question in Siman Kif Chov Ches Bad HaShilchen Asbeis, and first he wants to connect it to the Machloikes HaPoiskim if a person is allowed, if he's in a place which he doesn't have salt, and he wants to salt his chicken or meat in order to take out the blood from the meat, and he doesn't have salt, if a person is permitted to use sugar instead of salt to make kosher the meat. And some poskim say yes, you could use also sugar, and other poskim say you cannot take out the blood from the meat through sugar. And this is how we paskin, by the way. So he wants to connect it to this machloikas, but in the end it finishes that has no shayches, and since the custom, the derech of preserving this fruit are with sugar, it's aser to put sugar on top of it and let it soak, because it is of the same problem of salting vegetables which you marinate. Question. Are you allowed to add hot water into a humidifier on Shabbos? And the answer is no. Cold water, for sure you cannot put into a hot water humidifier, because you are cooking the water and it becomes Yad Soldas boy, and it's also because of Bishul B'Shabbos. But even hot water, you cannot put it into a hot humidifier in Shabbos. As the Mechasitzchak in Chelik Zayin Simach of Aleph writes, that since the way of cooking this hot water is, it should become vaporized, it should become vapor. So a food which the derech of cooking it is, it should be constantly being cooked. You cannot say that once it's this battle called tzarchoi, it is no more iser bishul, because we know the halacha is a machel which is this battle called tzarchoi, there is no bishul on it. But he says anything which gets, that's the way how to cook it. The way is to make it constantly cook till it vaporizes, it gets vapor. So you cannot say it's bashal karsorcha once it's hot, because the way of cooking it is in a higher way, it should become vaporized. So he says, if you take hot water from an urn and you pour it into a vaporizer and you made a fire, you are over of isa bishul, even if it was already hot water, which was yat soldas boy, because it wasn't considered as bashal tzarkai. Question: if a sefer Torah chas v'sholem falls off the bima on one side on the floor, do you have to fast or not? That means if it rolled down one side, the sefer Torah rolled down on the floor, do you need to fast? And the answer is yes, you need to fast, as the Beis Yitzchak writes in his shuvas Yerdei Chelik Beis Simakiv Samaches, and the Imra Aish brings it pastors like this also in Arachayim, Simon, Vov, and it's brought down also in the Astoira, Simon Mem Dalat, that even if only one part of the Sefer Torah touches the floor, you have to fast. Okay, thank you for joining us, and please join us again next week and send in your questions to inbox@anash.org. Good night and have a wonderful week.